Tonight, a new COVID case and exposure sites identified in Broken Hill, and a 42-year-old driver dies in a rollover at Kayelpa.
From our 7 Spencer Gulf studios, your nightly news with Ruby Kamain begins now.
Good evening. Contact tracers are working to determine how a second person in Broken Hill tested positive to COVID-19, despite no links to a known case. It's the second positive test in the Silver City this week, with exposure sites also identified.
Broken Hill's COVID-free status remaining under a cloud. An unvaccinated person testing positive yesterday, despite developing symptoms last Friday.
At this stage, don't second guess your symptoms. If you do have symptoms, come forward and get tested.
Earlier this week, a worker from Victoria also tested positive in Broken Hill. There's no known link between the two, and at this stage, Health believes the new case hasn't travelled recently.
I think from now on, it's not so much where it originated from, particularly when you've got high vaccination rates, rather really just dealing with what's in front of you.
With the return of COVID comes the return of exposure sites, a handful of venues of concern identified. Woolworths and BWS at Westside Plaza named as casual contact sites from last Friday. Surveillance testing doesn't apply to those in attendance who will need to isolate while awaiting a test result. Some vaccinated locals are hesitant to get tested for fear of having to isolate for 2 weeks if they test positive, but they're warned the consequences of not doing so could be far worse.
If you are positive and you delay health intervention, you could lose more than 2 weeks of your life.
Lachlan Itter, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Meanwhile, South Australia Police has become the latest workforce to mandate COVID-19 vaccinations for its workers. The new direction announced yesterday afternoon, from 1 past midnight on November 15, all SAPOL staff members, protective security officers, volunteers and contractors must have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine. It follows a mandate for health workers announced last week. The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners says the GP shortage in regional South Australia needs to be addressed urgently. The chair of the board set to visit the Spencer Gulf to assess the problem and work out how it can be resolved.
A lack of care in our hometowns. The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners Chair, Dr. Michael Clements, set to meet with local doctors about GP shortages. Travelling to Port Lincoln and Port Augusta for discussions with those at the heart of the problem and to develop an understanding of the dire situation.
There's been industrial debates and negotiations that haven't gone well, and that many towns in rural South Australia, just like around the country, are having trouble retaining but also recruiting new GPs.
The shortage of high-quality primary care has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and ongoing reliance on international medical graduates, said to result in overall poorer health outcomes and greater reliance on hospitals for issues that could have been managed in general practice.
So we've known, and we've always known, that we do rely quite heavily on that workforce. In Australia, only 15% of our medical students are selecting general practice as their primary choice.
Also saying more needs to be done to attract GPs to work in rural and remote communities, such as better incentives and upskilling opportunities.
That financial arrangement needs to be fair. It needs to be reasonable. It needs to compensate doctors adequately for the time they take out of the practice.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A 42-year-old Wallaroo man died in a rollover on the Eyre Peninsula last night. Another driver alerted emergency services after noticing the single vehicle crash at Kayelpa, west of Cleve. Crews rushed to the scene but found the sole occupant of the station wagon deceased at the scene. Investigators are looking into the circumstances of the crash. The man's death takes this year's state road toll to 83. The South Australian government passed new legislation earlier this week, committing to slashing emissions by half in the next 10 years. With the COP26 Climate Change Conference starting soon, the Environment Minister wants to set an example for the rest of the country.
It's another step to achieve net zero emissions within South Australia. Earlier this week, the state government committing to slashing greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by 2030.
This is something we've been very proud to be pursuing, really in a bipartisan way between opposition and government over many years. We're not standing still here in South Australia.
The Environment Minister saying the 2016 statewide blackouts were a wake-up call for the government to do better. Mining and manufacturing companies in the Spencer Gulf also committing to reducing their emissions.
A lot of those large mining entities that have an international ownership or shareholding are particularly interested in this. They like being in South Australia.
Last week, federal member for Grey, Rowan Ramsey, supported a national net zero target with support and feedback from his constituents. The Climate Council praising the efforts of the state in trying to reduce the carbon footprint.
South Australia has long been at the leading edge of Australia's response to climate change. Obviously, South Australians are no strangers to the brute realities of climate change.
Mr. Spears will virtually attend the COP26 conference next week. Mark Zeta, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, new windows, walls and a roof installed at Port Augusta Secondary School. And Moonta Splashtown extends its opening hours. Welcome back. The Eyre Peninsula Community Foundation has announced donations for back-to-school vouchers in 2022 will be doubled. Donors can make a tax-deductible contribution to the foundation, which will match the donations. The back-to-school vouchers will then be distributed to schools across the Eyre Peninsula. Contact the Eyre Peninsula Community Foundation for more information. What was once an empty site is quickly becoming a state-of-the-art learning centre. Construction of Port Augusta Secondary School's newest building is steaming along, set to be completed in the new year.
Port Augusta's eager-eyed commuters watching on as a new structure rises up next to Victoria Parade. The two-storey building set to become Port Augusta Secondary School's new Year 7 learning facility.
Our Port Augusta Secondary School is getting a $6 million upgrade. Every time you drive past the front of the school or on the main road at the back of the school, it is right there to see the very significant upgrade that's happening.
The state-funded project progressing along to now be fully enclosed with walls, windows and a roof now in place.
Of course, this comes at the time where Year 7 is transitioning from primary school to high school. That's something that's happened across the nation. South Australia is the last state in the nation to have done this.
The building dedicated to supporting more than 130 Year 7 students, with rooms specifically tailored to various needs.
It's exciting because we'll be forming a team around the Year 7 students. Those teachers will have a lot to do with each other and the particular cohort of students.
The building housing a state-of-the-art home economics centre, STEM facilities and art classrooms.
We have a major investment in the future of young people right here in Port Augusta through the public secondary school.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Construction is well underway on the Wallaroo to Moonta shared walking and cycling trail on the Yorke Peninsula. The Copper Coast Mayor meeting with community groups this week, viewing the progress of the works.
Getting straight to work on a $1.5 million project alongside the Spencer Highway.
This is where we've started the works for the shared walking cycling trail. This trail will link Wallaroo and Moonta.
Construction has started on the 14.9 kilometre Wallaroo to Moonta shared walking and cycling trail. It follows the old railway line, connecting the two Copper Coast towns and joining on to the existing Kadina to Wallaroo trail. The Wallaroo Lions Club overjoyed to see the works commence.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing to see it started, and it's something that I think everybody has been wishing for years, so it'll be really good for everybody. I wish I was still young enough to ride a bike on it. I might have to walk.
It's hoped once complete, the trail will provide a place for locals to exercise, but also draw more visitors to the region, giving them the option of viewing the Copper Coast.
It's really important for the locals to be able to exercise safely, but also when the tourists come here, they're wanting to be active and they're wanting to be able to have activities to do.
The project is expected to be completed by December next year. Katrina Musson, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Menindee could become home to a native fish hatchery following endorsement in a recent report. An independent scoping study commissioned by Central Darling Shire revealing a hatchery in the town would be sustainable and viable, potentially generating more than $500,000 of revenue each year. The report also finding there is merit for a formal business case, which will take 6 months to complete. A new agreement between the Copper Coast Council and Moonta Bay Caravan Park will see a popular facility extend its opening hours. Moonta Bay Splashtown has been around for some time now, with the announcement expected to be welcomed by the community.
Access to this free community water park set to be a whole lot easier.
Splashtown will be able to open 7 days a week, right through to the end of term 1 school holidays.
Splashtown, located at the Moonta Bay foreshore, is a free-to-use water park, open to both locals and visitors, and it's not just for the kids. A new management agreement for the Moonta Bay Caravan Park, now allowing the water facility to extend its opening hours, instead of being open during peak holiday periods, just in time for summer.
So we'll open and shut the water park, which will then stabilise the hours, so it'll be 7 days a week from 11 till 6.
The Copper Coast Mayor pleased the caravan park has come on board, saying it's a welcome announcement for the Moonta community.
It means that not only can the tourists enjoy it, but the locals can as well, and it is here for our local community and our tourists.
The new agreement and opening hours are expected to come into effect in the near future.
Just nice to be able to provide that for the community.
Katrina Musson, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break. Dates released and unsold tickets reopen for the Monday Bash. And a Whyalla retiree group prepares for Melbourne Cup Day. Hello again. It's official. There will be 2 Monday Bash events in Silverton next year, spurring on months of major events for the region. Tourism operators warning visitors to get in quick before accommodation fills up.
The stage is set for not 1 but 2 bashes in 2022, August 18 to 20, now locked in.
Hopefully people come out some people come out in April and have such a great time and want to come back out again in August for a whole new lineup.
The double header is the result of the inaugural event being pushed back from August this year to April next. Shifting dates meaning tickets are on sale for that festival once again.
We refunded, somewhere in the order of, close to 20% of tickets. So, there's a reasonable amount.
While there'll be only 4 months between the 2 festivals, organisers say they will have time to review any concerns the community has around the influx of visitors and the effect it has on local businesses and traffic.
We'll be having a full team debrief with our own team, with all the emergency service providers.
March and September are shaping up as pillars for a busy events calendar. The Broken Heel Festival also hosting 2 events. Tourism operators have a simple message to visitors.
Definitely book whenever you can, because you're not going to be able to just turn up next year.
Lachlan Itter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
The Steel City's retirees are encouraged to dress up and have a bit of fun during Melbourne Cup celebrations next week. Whylla's Probus Group keen to socialise and build friendships with other retirees on the day.
Encouraging older locals to come out and enjoy a special day of racing. The Whyalla Probus Group setting up a special table during Melbourne Cup celebrations at the Westland Hotel.
So as the events organiser for the Probus Club, I have decided to come along and have an outing.
People in retirement asked to dress in their best for an afternoon of fun. For the group, it's all about socialisation, with some spending retirement with little to no contact with people.
We do try to get out and about, but the big thing with Probus is there's friendship, there's fellowship, you meet new people, and it keeps you connected.
Probus groups all across the country celebrated a special day last month, bringing together retirees from right across the city. However, for the Melbourne Cup event next week, all ages are welcome to join the Whyalla organisation.
Dress up, wear the hat, wear the whatever, and just participate in whatever's out there, definitely. That's part of being connected and part of staying young, I guess.
This year's Melbourne Cup will be held next Tuesday, November 2nd. Mark Zita, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Football on the Eyre Peninsula has been given a boost, with the SANFL announcing the formation of a local regional football board. The board's establishment follows the restructure of football in the region prior to the 2021 season.
Ensuring the longevity of football on the Eyre Peninsula. The South Australian National Football League establishing a new regional football board.
The regional board is really an extension of the regional council, which has been in there for a number of years to support the strategic direction of football, and then by default, discussions with netball as well.
Local member for Flinders, Peter Trelaw, will chair the board. He says football and netball are vital for communities throughout the region.
The plan is for this board to be able to support, provide assistance to governance for local football and netball within our region.
There will be a strong focus on attracting and retaining junior players to the sport. Lisa Ferracci from the SANFL saying junior participation is needed for the continued success of the sport.
And one of those will be the focus on juniors and how do we try and capture juniors initially, capture is the wrong word, but attract juniors initially and then actually retain those juniors long term. And we know there's a drop off in all sports in youth.
Aligning football and netball in Port Lincoln, also a major focus. Mr Trelaw encouraging locals to get involved.
Every league on Eyre Peninsula is represented on this board. There are also positions available for community representation.
Dylan Smith, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Broken Hill City Council will write to the state government, pushing back against a COVID-safe rule affecting campaign material at polling places. The Electoral Commission given the power to ban posters and the distribution of how-to-vote cards within 100 metres of a polling place. Councillor Marion Brown moving a motion at last night's meeting, saying it's a disproportional response and will hinder the democratic rights of candidates. Stay with us after the break. Our fishing experts will join us with their weekend tips, and we'll have all the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back. Let's hear from our fishing experts on what's biting out in the Gulf waters this weekend.
Hi, Whalers fishing tips this week. With the warm weather, the fishing certainly is heating up across Whyalla. Land-based, some nice silver whiting schools starting to show up in front of the foreshore and down towards Cowlard's Landing. Down towards Point Lowly, some nice large kingfish starting to show signs. Work the rocky coastline along there and further around to Becky Point. Some nice salmon schools holding up close to the rock, so get into those. For the boat anglers, very few whiting hitting the table, starting to slow up. However, the crabs are moving into most of the local grounds.
G'day and welcome to this week's fishing tips from Port Augusta, Jewel North. Well, the big news at the moment, the kingfish are actually going off at the moment. They're getting them down at the old powerhouse site, up around the train bridge, and just behind me where they're constructing the bridge, starting to get some along those lines, but just bear in mind those exclusion zones as well. Crabs are starting to come on now, a little bit deeper water. They're starting to queue in the shallows and that as the tides come in the morning, but stay out deep, you'll get a few more. King George whiting, basically all but gone at the moment. The trumpeters have moved in. With a couple of these windy days, you'll start getting some nice silver whiting as well. There's a few salmon being caught up and around Chinaman's Creek and Port Patterson, and they have been getting the kingfish on the salmon as well. That's all we have from the Jewel of the North.
Welcome to another week around the Gulf fishing tips from Port Pirie. Cannot believe what's been happening again. I'm really excited about this change in season. I reckon our yellowfin whiting should be poking their head up around a little bit now. Perhaps around the Barrows Beach, up around Chinaman's Creek, Yatla Harbour. Great little spot for yellowfin whiting. If you're heading out to Port Davis, certainly go and fish the Oval, which is just at the front of Port Davis, for some flathead. King George whiting is still running all right. Blue swimmer crabs, no problems at all. I think you'll be able to get those in the deeper gutters straight away. So get your first taste of blue swimmer. That's all we've got this week. We'll see you next week.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, the fishing around our local bays has been pretty steady over the past week. There's been some good reports of some whiting, calamari and garfish coming in. Also up at Louth Bay, there's been some nice reports of some whiting up there. And out at the group, out from Tumby Bay, there's been some nice snook, silver trevally, garfish and some nice whiting out there as well. Offshore news has been a little bit limited, but a couple of reports from south of Williams Island where there's been some nice NANNYGAI and some good blue MORWONG caught down that way. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more tips next week.
Time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Alex Sykes.
Thanks, Ruby. Well, showers and thunderstorms today with a number of warnings current for the region, including a severe weather warning and a fire weather warning. You'll still need the umbrella tomorrow, but in some good news, conditions are clearing up on the weekend More detail on that in just a moment. From 3 p.m. today, Port Lincoln was 18, Port Pirie was 32 and Coffin Bay reached 17. Looking further out now, it was a hot one in Port Pirie, 38 there, Whyalla was 26, Broken Hill was 28, Clare was 30 and Cooper Pedy reached 35 degrees. Taking a look at the satellite image now, some severe thunderstorms and showers in the eastern and northern parts of South Australia with cloud sweeping across those areas. Some cloud building up in the west with a deepening low bringing with it further showers and storms. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Easterly to southeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 1 to 2 metres and south to southwesterly swell 1 metre. A possible shower in Port Lincoln tomorrow, 17 degrees. Cleaver shower to also 17 and Woodna will reach 20 degrees. Possible shower in Whyalla and Kadina, both 19. Port Augusta partly cloudy with 20 degrees. Port Pirie also set to reach a high of 20 degrees. Clare a shower or two with only 15 there and Broken Hill will be sunny with 22. Taking a look further through the week now, starting with Saturday, mostly sunny in Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Cooper Pedy, sunny in Broken Hill with 20 degrees, partly cloudy everywhere else. Sunny conditions across most of the region on Sunday. Cooper Pedy will be partly cloudy and 27, Woodna will reach 29 and warming up a little more on Monday, sunny and 32 in Port Augusta and Port Pirie, mostly sunny in Woodna, Cooper Pedy and Broken Hill. So conditions are also looking better next week, Ruby, and that's all the weather from me for tonight. It's back to you.
Thanks for that, Alex. And that's the local news this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.